Economics at JNU, joins us right now. Ms. Ghosh, thank you for joining us. And I just want to point out also that if we look at the numbers released by companies that sell cars and bikes and tractors and FMCGs and white goods, air conditioners, washing machines, soap and shampoo, they're all telling us that Indians have stopped buying, or they've reduced the volume of the buying that they used to do. Does this mean we're in a recession, we're in a slowdown? Explain to us what this really means.
Well, it's not yet a recession. A recession would happen when we actually have negative growth, that is a fall in output over 2 consecutive quarters. But I think it's possible that several sectors are in recession. And this is just the culmination of a process that has been coming for a while. Many of us have been saying this, that in fact the economy is not in good shape at all. It never really recovered from the blow of demonetization followed by the badly implemented GST. There's a crisis of effective demand, and that crisis has not been countered by any active involvement of the government. In other words, when you know that there's a problem, that people are not able to consume more, that investors are not investing, somewhere you have to counter that through government spending that is designed to kickstart the economy. That hasn't happened. So this was in the making, and it's just playing out now. This is really something that was brewing for several years.
Well, tell us this, Ms. Ghosh, do you believe that, you know, when this does play out, or if it does play out, and I do want to ask you about the fact that we do have sort of an artificial steroid in the market right now in the form of elections and the kind of money that political parties are spending. That will stop after the 23rd of May. What happens then? When you withdraw the steroid, what happens to the economy then?
Well, yes, in fact, I and many others have found it rather odd that in this period of election, when we all know that there's typically a boom in spending because of the fact that parties are out there doing rallies or getting volunteers, doing all of that kind of thing, you actually have some kind of an expansion in demand and part-time temporary employment. Now, even that has not been enough to actually lift the economy out of what is clearly a doldrums. So we are heading towards something quite serious. It's not just a kind of secular stagnation. It's a clear slowdown, which is pointing towards something much worse. Now, I should point out that I don't want to add to your bad news, but all of this is happening at a time when our external indicators are not looking too good either. Oil prices are on the rise again. This government benefited from several years of very, very low international oil prices. That's not going to continue in the near future. We're going to have to pay higher rates also because we are no longer able to access Iran's oil. We are going to have much harder global environment. Our exports are not doing well already, and they're unlikely to do much better in the near future. And volatile capital flows are going to become a much, much greater problem. They've already started, but we know that the balance of payments has been in a kind of febrile situation. It's feverish, it's volatile, it's responding to all kinds of news and rumors, and that's a situation where you can get large-scale capital flight that would really cause major financial pain.
Professor Ghosh, we understand also in the conversation that we had a couple of days ago that our GDP number, as the government has been telling us, is not reliable. Even so, even that unreliable GDP number has come down in the last 1 month, in the last 1 quarter as well. What do you think is likely to happen if this plays out? Will we start losing jobs? Will companies start firing people? We already understand that our farmers are in trouble. In the conversation I'm going to have in the next 5 minutes, we know that the Maharashtra government, the Maharashtra farmer suicide numbers are 610 suicides in the state of Maharashtra in just 1 quarter, in the first 3 months of this year. Is this going to now play out over the other sectors as well? How bad could this be, really?
You know, to be honest, it's already playing out. We are already losing jobs. It's complete denial to say that, you know, jobs are expanding and so on. It's fairly evident, and our own NSS data that was suppressed or the CMIE are telling us that we're losing several million jobs a year. So that problem has already started. We have seen it in the informal economy, we've seen it in small enterprises and micro enterprises that are closing and so on, but we are now seeing it in the formal sector as well. You mentioned industry, you mentioned farmers, but it's also the case that the IT sector, they're seeing significant layoffs. Today there is news about major layoffs in some of the large IT companies. So this is a widespread thing, and we really should have all the alarm bells ringing at full volume.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have the alarm bells, and the government is still heavily in denial. This would be, whoever comes in post-elections as the new government will have an emerging situation on their hands. They're going to have to put the economy on the top of the priority list, right?
I would say it's not just an emerging situation, it's an emergency situation. It's an emergency on jobs, it's an emergency on investment, it's an emergency on output, it's an emergency on the balance of payments. So yes, the new government will have to have a very, very solid hands-on approach, which is very clear about the direction it wants to take the economy. And the new government will have to first of all recognize that this is not something that you can just say, oh, it will get all right because fundamentally our growth processes are all right. They are not. Our growth over the last 5 or 6 years has actually been well below the growth trajectory of the 2000s, that boom phase that we had. And there are weaknesses, not just in terms of industrial production, but the fact that the rate of investment has been falling over all these years. That has an impact in terms of the kinds of sectors that grow, the productivity, the new kinds of things that come up. All of these things are coming home to roost now. We have already lost a very important 5-year period. We really cannot afford to lose any more time.
Well, that's unfortunately the truth, and while the government remained largely in denial in the run-up to the elections, any new government that is formed after these elections will no longer be able to bury its head in the sand. This is a real and an emergency situation. We have a problem with jobs, we have a problem with investments, we have a problem with the farm sector, we now have a problem with the industries and manufacturing sector. We really cannot afford any more. The services, and you should know really, viewers, that GDP is made up of agriculture, services and manufacturing. Agriculture is in trouble, manufacturing is in trouble, and we found out that the GDP number on services might be at least 37% off the mark, because a lot of it is coming from companies that don't exist. So we really don't even know how bad it is, because the government won't let us find out. That's the situation, and that's the truth as we have it right now. So while there's an election going on, and there's a lot of media right now with glaring on that election, there are far worse things and more important things happening in the country that we should focus on.